Alright you guys, so this is my setup right now. I have a blank canvas, I have a place to put my paint, I have multiple paint brushes. They pretty much are all the same. Some of them you just have to make sure that they don't have, you know, the bristles that are falling out of them or anything, because if you get that, they will go in your paint and it'll look funny, and you'll be, if you're anything like me, you're gonna sit here and try to get it out and then you're gonna ruin your painting, so that would not be good. Also, I have the colors of paints that I'm gonna use, and I am going to be mixing these. So I have a brown, a yellow, a grayish black, and a white. I also have Q-tips. I will show you my little trick with these. I have a white paint marker, because this actually is a lifesaver when it comes to writing. So if you write on any signs or any of your paintings, these make your handwriting look better than you trying to use a paintbrush. And then if you've ever painted before, I'm sure you know a glass of water to clean your paintbrushes, and I have a paper towel. So I am ready to get started, and I hope you are too. So the very first thing I'm going to do is mix my paint. Not all of them, I don't want to waste anything, because there will be a drying process here. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do my background, because it's a lot easier that way, and I'm going to start with a brown. But as you can see, this is like a chocolate frosting mixture kind of paint, so I want to add some white. I want to lighten it up a little bit. I want it to kind of look tan, I think. So there's those, and I am going to use this medium-sized brush and get that wet. Wipe that off so it's not too wet, and then I'm going to mix it. Now this does, obviously nothing has to be perfect. It always, art is art, and it always looks good in some way or another, and it's gonna look good regardless. So I have my brown mixed. I wanted to go for a lighter brown, and I think I might add a little bit more white because that is not light enough for me. So if you like it lighter, go crazy. If you like it darker, go crazy. This, you don't have to follow along with me if you don't want to, but it's more fun. I think that a lighter background to an autumn sunflower would look awesome, so I'm just gonna go with that. But now that I have this mixed, I actually didn't mix it all the way either. I don't know if you can tell. I got a little parts of dark brown in there. I have a little bit of white in there. So when I go to put it on, it's just gonna look cool. So I'm gonna put this on. I'm right-handed, so I'm gonna put it over there. Now the first thing, I don't ever put anything down. I am terrible at putting anything down, because I end up cleaning it afterwards anyways, so my table cleans off pretty good. If you feel like you need to put something down, I highly suggest that you buy a plastic vinyl tablecloth. It's typically clear, but you can get white ones too, but they're reusable. You can wipe them off when you're done, and I am actually gonna go get one because it would be highly beneficial for me, and I make a mess, so I do recommend that. So I'm gonna start with my background, and I am literally just going to go over this whole canvas with this brown. And now that I see it on the canvas, I love it, so I'm really happy with that. If you don't like the way your brown looks and you've already put it on the canvas, do not panic. I promise you, your life is not over. You just have to either, if you want it darker, add a little brown to this and mix it in. It would even look cooler like that if you wanted to do it that way. It would kind of look like a wood plank, or you could even make it look like the trunk of a tree or palette wood. I know I'm a big fan of palette wood decorations. My sister-in-law actually does a lot of that. I love painting, so I do a lot of the painting and the tie-dyes. And this part is always the easiest part. It's you just paint and put your background on there. Now, I will tell you, you probably are going to need a couple of coats, which is not a bad thing. If you put it on thin, kind of like how I'm doing it, there's some thick spots, but it will not take very long to dry, so you can get right back to it once you see that it's dry. So in the meantime, you can go play with your kids, or you can go take a shower, or whatever you want to do, and come right back and it'll be ready for you again. I love this brown, by the way, if I haven't mentioned that already. I love this brown. It looks awesome. Very happy with it. So I'm just going back and forth with my brush. It helps spread it better. It doesn't make the best marks, you can see that, but you are putting more than one coat on, so it's really not going to matter much. I also recommend when you're painting a background on, before you get too far into your painting, you should get your edges. Sorry about that. You should get your edges. So what I mean by that is, if you have a thick canvas like I do, you want to get the outsides of your edges here, because if that's going to be part of your background, you want that to be the same color. So I'm going to go around and do that. Now, with a lot of my paintings, sometimes I use the painter's tape and I go around and tape a border and do a border after my painting is done. That is good as long as you're using your painter's tape right. If you're not using your painter's tape right, you're going to have like really jagged edges and it's going to look really weird. And then you're going to be like, oh my gosh, why did I do that? Because now I don't know what to do to fix it. But you can fix it. All you have to do is have a steady hand, and if you don't have a steady hand, try it again. Try to put your painter's tape back a little further so you have a little room to fix it, and try it again. And if not, you can always paint another one. Painting is always super fun. So, I would paint it again anyways. Thanksgiving, it will be here very shortly, so that's another reason why I wanted to paint this, because when you have family members come over and they see how hard you painted something, they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, you really outdone yourself, very impressive, I can't believe you painted that. And then you're like, yeah, because I'm awesome. I am so awesome. I totally painted that all by myself. I'm running out of paint here. I'm almost done though. But painting is so fun anyways. I try to get my kids to do it with me all the time. Sometimes they get bored. Like my 10-year-old daughter, she always wants to paint with me, and I always want her to. I'm like, yeah, I would love it if you would paint with me. And she'll get 3/4 of a way through a painting, and then she'll start rushing, and I'm like, oh, please don't do that because your paintings are so good. And then she does it anyways. So I try to get her to paint with me, and when she does, it's so much fun. And then she, you know, she loves it, but she gets bored sometimes. But sometimes I let her go through Pinterest, and I'm like, well, why don't you just pick something on Pinterest? And now she's like, well, why don't we just look at your videos? I'm like, well, yeah, duh. That is too dark. Sorry, I don't know if you can see that. Too dark. So obviously I'm letting that kind of dry while I'm mixing more paint. It's not going to take much longer to dry. So you could do this if you want, but if you think you're going to take longer to let it dry and you're going to go do something, if you have to leave the house or you have to take care of your kids or anything like that, I know it's, you know, school's here, you got to do dinner, they got to be in bed. So if you just leave it, just put it up somewhere where it's not going to get ruined. If you don't mix your paint, there's lids for these that you can get that saves it so that your paint doesn't dry out and you don't have to start from scratch. So that's always a good thing to get. But I am having fun doing this with you, so I have plenty of time to wait. So I'm going to let you guys go do what you gotta do. I will be here waiting for you. Alright, you guys, we are back. So we're gonna do another layer of our background. And you do it the same exact way. Just make sure that it is mostly dry at least, because if it is even a little bit wet, you're gonna just push the paint around and it's gonna frustrate you a little bit. So as you can see here, I let mine dry a lot, so you can see that it's covering up really good. And just load it up with your background color paint. I was even thinking too, it's fall decor, so if you didn't want to do a brown because it's very neutral, I think a really pretty colored maroon or a red would even look good. I was actually just thinking that that would look awesome. A maroon or a red. If you do a maroon or a red and you do paint this, I would love to see that. So if you could post the picture in the comments below, I will definitely reply to you and let you know what I think, but I would like to see that, so that would be awesome. Post that for me, please. Even if you do the brown background, I would love to see those too. I would love to see your guys's different versions or how you want to do it, or maybe even you guys have hacks that I don't have. Like my one hack for my paintings is the Q-tips, especially when it comes to flowers. The middle of a flower it can be hard if you make it hard, but I use those Q-tips. They're very easy, especially for a sunflower, because in the middle of a sunflower it just looks like a bunch of really, 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 really tiny petals. So you can get an amazing center of your flower with some Q-tips. This is gonna look awesome. Didn't mix enough paint here. I don't know about you guys, but that is frustrating too. As long as I got enough, because I think this background looks good enough where I don't have to do another layer. So let's see if I can do that. No, I don't think so. I don't think I'm that lucky, you guys. And I still gotta do the outer edges, so we'll just do that real fast while mix some more paint. I don't need a ton because I only have the outside left. So I do that. I think that looks pretty close. All right. Fall is one of my favorite times of the year, and I also love it because that means that Christmas is coming, and I love Christmas. It's my favorite time ever. I literally would be happy if it was Christmas all the time, except, you know, if you can't afford it, like, I go crazy for Christmas, so by the end of it, I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna do this? So obviously, I don't think I'd be able to buy people presents all year long, but Christmas is so fun. But, you know, Thanksgiving's leading up to it, and it gets you in the holiday spirit, I guess you can say. It just makes you thankful for everything in your life. Like, I am thankful for my family, my husband, my kids. Okay, so I have my background finished. A little touch up here. So that looks good. I love that. So I'm going to do a quick view for you so you guys can see that. I'll just leave that in the water. So if you can see, I'll lift it up a little bit. I have a couple, you can see it's got a couple different browns throughout it, and you can kind of see a little bit of white in it. And I actually really love that. It kind of reminds me of wood and a fall background. So I guess I did good. I have to touch this up too. I'm losing my mind, you guys. So, like I said, this is the second coat that we just put on, and we have to let this dry. If you try to paint your flower on top of this and it's wet, you're gonna push your brown around. So you may not see it because you can go over it with the yellow, but it's just easier if it's dry. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about the brown mixing with your yellow or your center of your flower. So it's easier just to let it dry, and that's what we're gonna do. There's not like a thick layer on it or anything, so you can take your time, go do some more stuff that you gotta do, go have a cup of coffee, which is what I'm gonna do, and then we'll be right back and we will be getting into this flower, and I'm telling you, this flower is gonna be awesome. Alright, you guys, so now that we have our background all finished, I went ahead and mixed some of my paints. You guys don't have to do this exactly how I did it, but I did brown with a little bit of gray, brown with a little bit of gray, obviously one's darker than the other, regular brown, light brown, white, yellow, yellow and brown, and then yellow and white. So what I'm going to start with is the center of the flower, because that is going to be part of our focal point, I guess you can say. I'm going to do a quarter of the flower. So what I'm going to do is I'm using my hack that I told you guys about earlier. So I got my Q-tips, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do light in the center, out to dark, and with that we'll make our center of our flower. So we're going to start with a light and start right at the corner, which looks just like the background, and dot. Now, because it's so light and it's the center of it, and it's going to look just like the background, like I said, you don't have to do very much of it if you don't want to, because we're going to do the darker colors too. So I already did a little bit of that. You can't really see it because of how light it is, but we'll just go right into the darker brown and dot those. If you don't like the way that the Q-tips make them look, you could always use a paintbrush or even a different kind of sponge or anything like that. I like it. I think it actually looks pretty close to a sunflower, a center of a sunflower when I do this, so I like it. Get a little dry and add some more on there. I'll do one more row of this. All right. And then I am actually going to keep using this side just because it's just brown and it's not going to hurt anything. So we'll go to the darker brown mixed with a little bit of the gray. And even though the rest of this is wet, it actually would look cool if you went over it just a little bit, because then it kind of mixes together and blends together. I'll do a couple of rows of that one. And then I'm going to go to the darkest. Now, if you don't like the way that these look because they're so different, it's not as gradual as you normally would see, you can actually go through, like for instance, I am going to get a new Q-tip and I'm going to use that really light brown and go through a little bit and put some in there, and then I'm going to go to the darker brown right here and put some in the darker brown, so it kind of doesn't look as separated. And then another one up here. You can make your center bigger if you like, but my main goal is the petals. So when I do my petals, I want my petals to be big and pretty. So that's as far as I'm gonna go. You can go bigger if you want, you can go smaller if you want, but I am actually going to write on this side, so I want my flower to take up most of the room, but not all of the room. So I'm going to let that sit for a couple of minutes. It doesn't have to be totally dry, but let it sit for a couple of minutes to kind of stiffen up some, and then we'll come back and start our petals. All right, you guys, so we have our center of our flower. I did add a little bit of extra brown and kind of blended them just a tad, just with the Q-tips. I didn't do anything special. I just kind of went over with different colors to make it look better. So now we're ready to move on to our petals. So I am actually going to use, excuse me, I'm going to use this. I don't want perfect shaped petals because sunflowers are not a perfect edge or anything like that, which, I mean, I'm probably gonna have some pretty straight edges, but for the most part you want this to look kind of like a real sunflower, even if it doesn't and it looks like a painted sunflower. That's what we're going for anyway. So I am going to start on this side, and I want kind of like half of a petal, and I'm going to make them big. So mine are not going to be perfect at all because I don't really want it to be perfect. I want it to look rustic. I want it to look kind of rough, and I'm going to be switching paint brushes here and there just to get what I want. So I also don't want to go over my edge here because I like to keep the brown border. So you could either tape that off so you don't get it on there, but I'm just going to be extra careful. And even if you get a little bit of yellow in your brown, it's not going to look terrible. It's actually just going to look natural, because that's what it is. It's a natural flower. Make sure you can see here. So this brush is a tad big for this part, but I am filling in the petal, so I'm just going to fill it in with this and get a better one for my highlights and shadows, because we're going to do that too. So get up close to where you want your edge. And you are going to have to do a couple of coats again, just to get the color you want, or you'll be able to see everything underneath it and it won't look smooth, or it'll just look really rough. You can see all the brush strokes in there too. So that would be another reason it would look rough, as your brush strokes. But we are just going to keep going, and we are going to make a lot of other petals, and I am going to switch brushes because this one's too big, like I already said. Excuse me. I'm going to go with a smaller one, just like that. Get it a little wet. I am going with regular yellow. It is actually called bright yellow. But with highlights and shadows, we're going to put highlights and shadows in it. It's going to give it a dimension, so it'll look like there's a shadow on it, or, you know, it'll look like it's supposed to. If you're not confident on your hand painting skills without sketching, you can also sketch on these with a pencil if you want. I personally don't, because I don't like to worry about trying to go over the pencil, It's not hard, but if you sketch somewhere where you don't plan on painting again after you already have your background, it's kind of a pain in the butt, so. Just gonna outline these. We're gonna go behind it and add a couple of more background petals. I hope you guys are having as much fun as I am. I actually like doing this. My family does a paint party once in a while. My dad's side of the family does the paint parties, but they're, you know, very crafty people. My aunt actually is so crafty. She used to babysit us kids, and we used to do different things every day. We used to do fabric paint on felt. She taught me how to do the cross stitching and all sorts of stuff, so I learned a lot from her. I also learned a lot. My mom does a lot of crafty things. She doesn't think she's crafty, but she really is. But it's not a genetic thing by any means. Everybody can do this. This is one of the greatest things about painting is, like I said, it does not have to be perfect. Nobody is perfect. I mean, even Bob Ross probably didn't get everything perfect the way that he wanted it. So that's the best part. And with paint, as long as it's not, I mean, a super dark color, even if it is a super dark color, you can still go over it. If it's a dark color like this, you would just have to go over it a couple of times to get your color back that you wanted, or, you know, you can always fix things when you don't like something. And I love that too. And I typically don't sketch anything, like I, said, so when I come up with an idea, maybe it's something that I Pinterest, but I typically have something in my head when I want to paint something that I've seen before, something that I've seen the other day when I was out and about, or it doesn't matter what it is. I actually can pick a bunch of different things to paint right now because I have so many good ideas. So if you have the time, just paint. Painting is so much fun anyways, and for a lot of people, including me, it actually de-stresses me. So when I've had a rough day, I turn on the music or my wireless earbuds or whatever, and turn on the music and just paint, because it's something to concentrate on. That you don't have to think about the things that you're stressing about, and it just is great. Alright, so I did finish this petal, and I added some more to this petal, and we need to go over it again to get rid of the background behind it that you can see. So we're gonna do that real quick, and we're gonna start adding our highlights and our shadows in there too. This may take a couple of coats because the yellow is a lot lighter than the brown. Maybe one more after this one. So we're also going to, since we're touching up these ones, we can start the background petals, which is a good idea considering we're trying to let some of this dries so that we can get more coats on them. So that way you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. You can always do something. Alright, another coat added, and we are going to get the background ones. So as of right now, these petals are the same exact color, but we are adding the highlights and the shadows to it afterwards. So they're gonna look like they're all the same thing and they're all blended together, but by the time that we're done, they won't look like that at all. I'm gonna color those in. And you'll be able to tell by your stroke lines where they start and stop, so. And also by how many coats you already have on which ones. Alright, so if you actually look at this, the brown behind it actually makes it look like a real sunflower, and that could be a good thing, or some people would look at it and say, well, you could still see the background through that, but it does look like a sunflower because sunflowers have that brown tinge to them. I am still going to go over the front petals, but I think the back petals, I'll touch up the outsides of them a little bit and then add the final touches to those. But I am going to go over these one more time, get that bright yellow Alright, so I did go over these petals here. I'm going to go over the background petals one more time. I do like the black, or not the black, sorry. I do like the brown coming out of them. So I don't want them as bright as the front petals. But I do want them to look more yellow than brown. So I am going to go over them. I actually really love this being brown right here because it shows the shadow already, so I'm going to leave that just like that. And I'm going to switch brushes to something smaller. Excuse me. So I'm going to start with my light yellow. And you wanna, when you do a highlight, you wanna pick a side as if light was pointing on it. So I am going to pick the left side, and you can do this very randomly. It's just going to add highlights to it. And it doesn't have to be straight lines, it can be zigzags, it can just be painted randomly. Doesn't even have to have more than one coat. You're just trying to give it some highlight. So I'm going to do it right here too. Alright, so there's my highlights. And you can see it gives it a shape too, so when you look at it now, instead of it being a flat yellow, it looks rounded. They look like the sun shining on them. So now on the opposite side, we're going to go with our brownish yellow. And you kind of want to go light with it because it is a mustardy brown color. It is going to go very good with it, but you just have to be careful with it. If you do too much, it's going to look very dark. But this is going to help too with your separation of your petals. So you don't want a ton, but you want enough to show that it's there. Alright, so if you're looking at this now, you can see that you have highlights on the left hand sides of your petals and you have your shadows on the right hand side. So now that looks like a legit sunflower. I'm super proud of that. So that is going to dry, but while we are doing that, I am going to add a phrase to the sign. I am going to put "Fall in Love" on the side, and I'm using a paint marker. It is the best thing you could use if you're going to add lettering, because if your handwriting's good, I mean, even if it's not good, it's pretty simple. But I am going to go with cursive for fall and then regular letters for the "in love" part. But I'm going to make fall big because this is a fall painting, so. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect, like I said earlier, because you can always go over it. But this is going to be, I'm going to make this a lot thicker too. You want to be able to see this from a distance. And I will go over that one more time just so that it's more white than anything. But I'm going to finish this cursive. Alright, so fall. I'm going to bring the bottom of this back down just a tad more. Make it look a little more dominant. And then we're going to do in. I'm going to do a little bit smaller. Alright, so I have my lettering on there. It is only one coat. I made them as thick as I wanted. While I'm going through and doing a second coat on them, I am going to touch up any of the lines that I don't like or that are too rough. And then the painting will be finished except for one more step. So the next step after this is dry is going to be polyurethane. So if you're not familiar with that, it's kind of a weatherizer. So if you plan to use this sign outside, It will protect from rain and snow and the sun from stealing the paint, because I did notice that if you don't put polyurethane on a sign and you have the sun beating on it every day during the summertime, the paint fades. So polyurethane, you can get it in the paint-on kind or the spray kind, and I use the spray kind because it's easier and less messy. I just put this on a piece of cardboard and spray it, follow the directions it says so, hold it 6 inches above it, and spray evenly. So do exactly that, spray it evenly, try to get your outer edges, and I always do 2 or 3 coats depending on what it looks like. Probably 3, because that is going to keep it the way that it needs to be, and it's going to give it a pretty gloss. So do that, and then your sign would be finished. Thanks again for painting with me today. I can't wait to see you next time.